Many personal trainers come into the industry with the intention of becoming celebrity trainers or at least training very high profile people. And in this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight as to what that actually looks like and whether or not it's something you should be aiming for. If you're new here, my name is Alexander Lyon. I've been a personal trainer in London for the last 10 years. I'm currently making around £90,000 a year, working 3 days per week. And I help personal trainers to make more money and build better relationships with their clients. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get into it. Firstly, high profile people and celebrities are quite sensitive about those that are around them. So they are usually very discreet and they work with people that are mutual friends. Friends of friends in their circle. It's not often outsiders, so to speak, will come in and work with them. If you are in their close circle as a personal trainer, then that requires a lot of trust from that person. And especially in these kinds of relationships and professional engagements, there are often non-disclosure agreements that are in place as well. And if you don't know what that is, it literally means you're not allowed to talk about it legally. And as much as that's the intention, it very rarely actually works out like that. A lot of trainers will go to the boutique gyms like Equinox and Third Space in the hopes of meeting these super high profile people so that they can then leave the gym, steal the clients, and kind of do it on their own. However, it doesn't really work out as easy as you think it's going to. And there are a number of reasons for that, but number one is it's not as easy as you think it is. I would say that the biggest challenge with training higher profile people and celebrities is scheduling. Their schedules are so busy and they are so unpredictable and they can change so last minute. How on earth are you supposed to try and find a routine and a schedule that not only suits them, but suits you and your business as well? Logistically, it's just incredibly difficult to coordinate. Now you might be thinking, well, I can charge these people £150 a session, maybe £200 a session, and you can. And that might sound good, but then you realize that number one, they might only be able to train 2 or 3 times a month. Secondly, you have to block out so much of your time because you're not sure when they're able to train. That you might be blocking out a 3-hour period when they might be able to train it anywhere, whenever they get off set, or whenever they get out an interview or an engagement or a dinner or a meeting or whatever. So you have to block out 3 hours. So you're not getting paid by the hour anywhere near as much as you think you are. The next challenge is location. Where are you actually going to train these people? Because celebrities, high profile people, they are not going to be training with you in a big commercial gym. They're not going to train with you in Fitness First, Anytime Fitness. They're not going to train with you in a pure gym, right? So you're going to need to have a nice space in which to train these people. Now, some people may have access to a nice home gym that you can go basically to their house and sort it out. That's the ideal situation for this kind of arrangement. However, in London, given how expensive real estate is and how little space there is, that's much more difficult, much more expensive. So that's a bit more rare. In that case, you then need to find a personal training studio that you can take them. The big challenge of that though, is that you typically with those studios, you need to pay rent and book out the hour. What happens if they then change the time? If the client then changes the time, last minute, and you have to coordinate not only with the studio, but also with the client. And then let's say the time that the client is actually ready to go, the studio's not even available. So then it becomes these logistical issues that are incredibly difficult to manage. Not only that, but when you engage with these private studios, you can incur a lot of costs. Even my studio, to hire it for an hour is 25 quid. For some people in other parts of the country, that's what a PT session would cost. But just to hire the studio is £25. So you can imagine in a more bougie one, because I wouldn't say I'm in a bougie, super fancy studio. I'm not, I'm in a nice studio, but a super fancy one, it could be £30, £40. Now suddenly you have to take that off the rate that you've made. So now let's say you were charging 150, you now are only actually making 110, plus your travel costs, plus it's extra time. Suddenly it's starting to look like this is a lot harder than I thought it was. The next big challenge is how much do you actually charge? I know I've thrown around the number of 150, 200, but that's the idea. That's the idea. You go into it and you think because you're training more high profile people, you can charge more. Very rarely is that actually the case though. First of all, it's important to remember high profile people and celebrities does not necessarily mean wealthy. That's the first thing you have to understand. It doesn't necessarily mean they're sitting on millions. In fact, that's quite rare actually. And they're not stupid, right? So if they know that you're charging 2 or 3 times the price you would charge a normal client, they're gonna cotton onto that and they're not gonna like it. Something else to consider is that a lot of these kinds of people, rather than paying you cash, they'd rather trade publicity or trade introducing you to more people. Now that can be good as a long-term strategy, absolutely. But if you're as a PT, you need an income as well. And if you've gone all in on training these kinds of people, then how are you actually paying the bills? You know, you might be in a situation where you don't have bills, right? But if you do, it's difficult to go all in on this kind of model until 2 years down the line. Then it's easy because you know everyone, you got loads of business coming your way, you're super well known. But how do you get to that point? That's the challenge. Because of everything I've said, you're never gonna have a situation where you're training 30 celebrities a week. That's not gonna happen. And as much as you might be able to charge a little bit more, what I've always found is that by simply training middle-class people, you end up making more money because you can stack clients on top of each other. You can go and do 6 to 8 sessions back to back. You don't need to worry as much about the scheduling. You don't need to worry about the location. All the clients will come to you, right? There's a lot less last minute cancellations and unpredictability going on. So I've always found that I've made much more money training just normal middle class people. However, there are successful celebrity trainers. Of course there are. Of course there are. It's just that it's nowhere near as easy as you think it's going to be to do that. And it depends what your goals are in this business. Like if your goals are to make an honest living and to service people and really get into the nitty gritty of training and coaching, then that's not going to be your ideal clientele. If you've got ulterior motives and you want to kind of go into another industry, maybe the TV industry or the movie industry or the music industry, then that's probably where you need to be going so you can start to make those connections and build out that network. And long term, that may very well pay off for you, absolutely. But it really depends where you want to go, because in the beginning, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you, especially if you're starting from zero and you don't know anyone. My intention is not to sway you either direction, to be honest. I'm just trying to present the facts. And of course, like, it's absolutely anecdotal. This is my experience, right? I'm sure other people have different experiences, but this is how I've kind of seen that to work. I'd love to hear, like, if you've had experience training these kinds of people before, I'd love to know what your thoughts are and, you know, what the advantages and disadvantages are. So if you have those and you want to share, then please comment below. But I hope that's been helpful, guys. And as always, if you have found value in this content and it has been helpful, then I would really appreciate if you could help me grow by subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell at the bottom as well so you don't miss a video, and help me help more PTs. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.